As we prepare the nursery for the newest member of our family, I wanted to create something really special. 3 watercolour paintings of Aussie animals, each with a bit of love and a lot of anticipation. Today I'm taking you along on the journey of creating these paintings for the nursery, blending a bit of art with some special family moments. My daughter and her husband are expecting their first child next month, and they asked if I'd paint something special for the nursery. They chose 3 Aussie animals, a kookaburra, a kangaroo and a koala. You might have seen the kangaroo painting in a previous video, so today I'll be sharing parts of the koala and kookaburra paintings, along with a glimpse of how we're putting it all together for the nursery. With all 3 paintings I used the same Schmincke colours, French ultramarine and transparent sienna. For the koala I added a touch of ruby red to bring out some pink areas in the fur. French ultramarine is a warm, transparent blue that granulates beautifully, and when mixed with transparent sienna, it creates the perfect grey tones I needed for the koala's fur. I prefer Schmincke's transparent sienna over their burnt sienna because it's fully transparent and it's made from a single pigment, PR101. Schmincke's burnt sienna, on the other hand, is semi-opaque and uses 2 pigments, which can sometimes affect how it mixes. Wherever possible, I like to work with single pigment colours. They tend to give me cleaner, more reliable mixes. When I paint fur like this, I usually start with a wet-on-wet technique. This allows the colours to blend seamlessly, creating soft edges, and it lets the pigments naturally separate on the wet paper. It gives me those lovely organic effects without me needing to intervene too much. I also like to build up layers gradually. I'll begin with the lightest value I see in the fur, then I'll let that layer fully dry before adding the next one. With each layer, I deepen the darker areas and I gradually form the shape of the animal. This layering process helps bring depth and texture to the fur, making it look more lifelike. For the kookaburra painting, I used just 2 colours, French ultramarine and transparent sienna, for the entire piece. Here I'm using the grey I mixed from them to paint the white feathers on the head with a wet-on-wet technique. I leave large areas of the white paper untouched to create the lightest area of the feathers. I've also left some edges along the outside of the head without paint, creating what are called lost edges. This adds a sense of depth and softness to the painting, especially since I'm not using a background. I used the wet-on-wet technique on the bird's body as well. First I wet the area with a large mop brush, then I applied the grey mixture. Here I'm painting the shadow on the white body feathers, which helps create a sense of roundness and softness. I curve the brush strokes to follow the natural shape of the bird's body, which mimics the feather texture and adds that gentle, soft look. The small brown feathers on top of the kookaburra's head are short and layered, giving a textured, slightly spiked look. They add character and contrast against the white and grey tones, with each feather showing little subtle variations in brown, almost like flecks or small strokes. This detail brings out the bird's unique charm and it adds a depth to its expression. Painting them can be a bit tricky because it's easy to get lost in the details. I used to try capturing every tiny element exactly as I saw it, but now I realise it's actually better to keep it loose, to maintain that fresh fluid quality of watercolour, I painted these feathers fairly loosely on wet paper, using thick pigment straight from the tube. The pigment holds its place on the wet paper, while the moisture creates the soft, diffuse edges that I want. By blurring my eyes when I look at the reference, I capture the essence of the feathers rather than rendering each one in detail. I suggest them rather than fully define them. To create this dark brown, I mixed French ultramarine with more transparent sienna than usual, which gave me a rich brown instead of a grey. And here you can see how the wet paper allows the pigment to separate slightly, creating a beautiful textured effect that adds depth and interest. I used the same dark brown for the cheek feathers, again working wet on wet. This time I mixed a bit of water into the paint to let it spread softly across the wet paper. To create a more defined edge at the bottom, I pulled some of the dark paint onto the dry paper, forming those little subtle feather separations there. I tried to paint this patch of wing feathers here fairly simply as well. First, I painted a wash of the brown mixture over the area, and then, while it was still wet, I used thick, dark brown pigment to shape the feathers. When I need a thick paint mixture, I use freshly squeezed pigment straight from the tube. This lets me pick it up with a slightly damp brush and mix with it without adding extra water, and it keeps the colour rich and bold. Towards the end of the painting, I decided to add some warmth as it was looking a little bit too cool overall for me. When a painting leans heavily toward one temperature, adding a small area of the opposite temperature can help create balance. So if the painting is predominantly cool, a touch of warmth can add harmony. And if it's mostly warm, a hint of coolness does the same. So here I've wet the area at the bottom with clean water, and I've washed on some transparent sienna to bring in that warmth. With the paintings complete, I took them to the framer, choosing simple white mats and natural timber frames to keep the look clean and timeless. The light wood and white mats complement both the artwork and the nursery decor, which has a similar timber and white theme. I'm really pleased with how they turned out. They're ready to bring a bit of Australian wildlife to the nursery. We gave the paintings as gifts at Erin and Ash's baby shower, and seeing their reactions was truly special. They were so excited, smiling from ear to ear, knowing these paintings were created just for their little one. Seeing their joy made the moment even more meaningful. It felt special to give them something that will soon bring warmth and character to the nursery. I couldn't have hoped for a better reaction, and I'm thrilled they can't wait to hang them in the nursery. So, a few weekends ago, we brought everything down to their place to help hang the paintings just above the cot. Dom came prepared with his tools, tape measure, level and frame hanging tool, just to make sure they were perfectly spaced and aligned. Being a builder, he's all about accuracy, so he took the time to get everything just right. Watching the paintings come together on the wall was a satisfying moment. Now the baby will have something his or her nana created with love. A little piece of family and home to welcome them into the world. I'm planning to paint the kookaburra again next year for a tutorial because a few of my students have requested it. And if you're interested, prints of these paintings are available in my shop. Just check the link in the description. You'll also find all the details there about my watercolour classes. You can subscribe on Patreon for hundreds of tutorials, or you can purchase individual classes from my online school. This octopus painting is one of my latest classes where you can paint along with me. In this two-part tutorial, we use only 4 colours And we work both wet on wet and wet on dry to layer up rich colours and textures. We lift colour from the dry paper to create highlights, and in the final stages of the painting we add some pan pastel to create additional highlights. There's lots to learn. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope to see you in one of my classes soon. This is the end, and we've got no bloopers. What are we going to do about that? You'll have to get bloopers off the other one. Take 2. I'm planning to paint the kookaburra again next year because a few of my students have let me start again. I'm planning to, that was your stomach again.
It wasn't my stomach.
It was. I can hear it from here. I'm planning to paint, now I'm going to laugh. I'm planning, look at the heels. I keep thinking about your tummy rumbling.